Hello, and welcome everybody to once again another episode of r/ProRevenge. My name's Ryan, the official host here at Reddit Voice, and I look forward to bringing you guys today's top stories. Before I do though, you know the drill. I'd really appreciate it if you hit that like button, subscribe button, and notification bell to stay up to date on all the latest videos. Take my flight home, I'll take your money. My first post and on mobile. Me, DFO, dumb freaking officer, Lieutenant Colonel. As a new lieutenant in the Army a few years back, I was tasked to be a guest observer, evaluator, at a national training center in California. Basically, it's a large desert with small towns for military units to train in before deploying. On day 29, once all evaluations were complete, I was set to fly back to Texas and return to my unit. In the observer/controller barracks, I was approached by a Colonel DFO.
Lieutenant Bucks, I am taking your place on the flight back to Fort XXXX.
Sir, you're part of the training unit. All of the observers are leaving on this flight, and my bags have already been sent to the airfield. I don't have any changes of clothes.
You'll be okay for a few days. Officers must innovate to be successful.
And innovate I did. When I returned to my post, I was unable to locate my gear, including body armor, computer, cold weather gear, and other like items due to the fact that they flew in 2 days before me on the flight I was kicked off of. I informed my command and they initiated an inquiry called a FLIPL, Financial Liability Investigation of Property Loss, in which an investigator is required to determine the reason for lost government property. The investigating officer determined that I was not at fault and that the DFO abused his authority to return home earlier. Additionally, since I was left at the training center for over 30 days, I was due additional pay for being away over a month, which amounted to over $1,000. DFO was found liable for over $7,000 worth of my equipment and had to pay for it, which I subsequently found and turned in to the Central Issue Facility. I was reissued a new set of kit. I bought myself a nice chair and put the rest into my TSP, government equivalent of a 401k, with the extra temporary duty, TDY money, and fuckface got reduced to a staff job. Boss wouldn't pay me the money I earned, so I had his company shut down, and other FU moments. Last year, I started working for a local plumbing company that seemed promising, would pay top dollar to employees for good old-fashioned labor. So I signed my W-2 and went on my way. Seems legit, right? I started making an hourly wage, was given my own work van, and was offered a work cell phone. However, if you used your personal cell phone, the owner of the company would pay your bill because you're using your own phone. How neat is that? Fast forward a month or two. I was forced to make commission based off of every job, and I didn't have a say in this. But 20% of every job you go to? Hell, that's a lot of money in plumbing. So I was none the wiser. Eventually, I found out that my paychecks weren't having any taxes taken out of them. So I asked my boss, why am I not having taxes taken out of my check? To which he replied,
We switched you to commission. You're a subcontractor now. You're 1099. You're gonna be making so much bank now, bro.
Didn't sign a 1099 form, but okay. As time went on, I started working 90-hour weeks with no break. If my phone was turned off and the office folk tried to reach me and couldn't, they would take money out of my paycheck. The phone bill never got paid. There would be days where I wouldn't make a single dime because the boss would mess something up in our system. We also had no heat in our vans, and when it got to -14 outside, his words were,
Go buy a fucking blanket. I can't afford repairs like this right now.
While he is in Florida on a cruise with his whole family. So like anyone else, I just up and quit. Fuck that. When I left, I asked for my checks. I was owed 3 of them for the weeks I worked, but my boss wasn't ready to give them up yet.
You fucked me over and now I'm gonna fuck you over,
he said as I asked why he wasn't going to pay me. I offered multiple times for him to just meet me so this wouldn't have to go any further, and he refused. I took to r/legal advice and asked what I should do. The responses led me to a LARA, Department of Licensing and Regulatory Affairs, to file a wage claim to get my money. But on top of that, I filed a report with them stating that the company doesn't pull permits, which is required to do when replacing people's plumbing. So they sent over an investigator to check these claims out. I then went to the IRS to find out about the whole tax ordeal. I filed the proper paperwork to have the IRS check and see if I was misclassified as a 1099 employee when I should have been a W-2 employee, since they weren't taking taxes out. Sure as shit, I was wrongfully not getting taxes taken out of my checks, so the IRS sent an investigator of their own. Now, at this point, I see on my phone that I still have their email address linked to my Google account. So I do some snooping, and it turns out they haven't paid city taxes in over 6 years, and that the office manager, a woman who has verbally abused me time and time again, collects disability through the state but still collects a $1.5K paycheck from the company every week. You can bet your ass I sent that in with the IRS. Screenshots included in my email. This is how it all unfolded. I have a friend that still works, or rather worked for them at the time, and he told me about the investigators coming in. LARA fined them upwards of $50K for failing to produce the proper permits for work that was performed. They also paid me what the company owed me with interest since I waited over a month for those checks. On top of all of this, the IRS made them pay for my taxes at the end of the year, took away the office's manager's disability, and audited them because they haven't paid city taxes and fined them for each employee that they did this to. At the time, as well, all of his fleet vans broke due to wear and tear, and this resulted in the company closing. When he asked me why I did all of this, my response was simply, "You fucked me over, so I fucked you over." Edit. I did sign a W-2, but they never gave me any tax forms at the end of the year and told me to fill out a 1099 instead of giving me my W-2. 2. I'm not the best with tax form names. I signed one when I first started that stated I would be receiving a W-2 at the end of the year. Sorry for the confusion. Fire us or cut our pay? Enjoy a mass walkout. Not sure if revenge or karma, but it fits revenge, I hope. Back in the early 2000s, I worked for a tech company who offered tech support, on-site support, and training to organizations who either didn't want specialized IT staff or could benefit from outsourcing. The company consisted of 3 directors: a sales department, finance/HR department, and a tech department. Tech was further split with a senior manager, 4 team managers, and each team having 2 section managers. For call center support, where I worked, we had 2 team leaders, 2 senior engineers, 2 normal engineers, and 2 juniors. I was a standard engineer, earning $22K for a job that was worth at least $5K more outside of the low price area we all lived in. 2006, and I'm still stuck in this job, on the same pay. Conditions are worse than before, with no overtime, no flex time, no financial compensation for industry qualifications, shortened breaks, and no pay rise since I started. To make matters worse, they sold part of the land that the office was on to a developer, and on-site car parking was now for management only. We had to either pay to use the nearby council car park or risk parking on the street. Morale was low, but despite bad pay, it was still good for the area we lived in. One Friday in July, think it was the 21st, one of the senior engineers finds a document that he shares around the private chat app. It's a restructuring plan that the board voted in last week. Apparently, this had to be made available for the company for 3 months before any changes to terms and conditions could be made. So the board gave it a generic file name and tried to bury it in the large staff shared area of our network. One of the directors was selling his shares and moving on, having been headhunted by a large recruitment firm in a nearby city. The 2 remaining directors had managed to buy most of her shares with a small quantity going outside the company. This was the company response. Most of the document was a typical downsize/restructure package with a twist. A few team mergers, staff reductions, and pay cuts spun as to say that they needed it to maximize their profits and put the lost money back in the company. In October, a new contract would be released for all to sign, and was generic. In November, the restructure would be announced, and by January 1st, the new structure would be in place. The directors noted that the new contract needed to include clauses for non-competition and soliciting customers, as these didn't exist except for the sales staff. It also mapped current positions to their new ones and what the new salary would be. I would be downed by £5,000 a year, but the twist was that anyone with the word manager in their title would have their pay increased drastically. The team manager's pay jumped from $52K to $65K, for example. By the end of the day, everyone under the rank of team leader had seen this document and was not happy. Over the weekend, I got a text message from one of the senior engineers inviting me to a barbecue at his house. When I got there, most of the tech staff was there, and during the afternoon we formulated a battle plan. Our revenge. Monday, the 24th of July at 8 a.m. 26 people in the tech team arrived for work as normal, each with a letter for the senior manager giving their 1-month notice and all quoting the clause in their contract that states that members of the technical team with access to confidential company information must be off-site and on gardening leave the same day as they hand in their notice. No exceptions will be given. Gardening leave is a term used to say that we still work for the company, have handed in our notice to quit, but we can't remain on site or using company resources, so we must wait out the remainder of the notice at home. We can't start a new job within that period. The new effect was that at 9:30 a.m., the director realized that his entire tech staff had quit, and marched to the office floor and started harassing one of the seniors. The senior simply stood, took off his ID badge and swipe card, handed it to the director, and told him, "I've already quit. This is me now sticking to my contract." On cue, most of the staff followed, with one member staying until lunchtime. From what I've been told, directors, senior managers, and anyone they could get hold of were on the phones attempting to fix issues. The unsolved open queue went from around 35 to nearly 100 by lunchtime, and naturally the blame was left firmly at the door of those who quit. We were even bad-mouthed to customers. The day after our notice period expired, the senior engineer welcomed 25 new staff to his new company and had already taken 10 large contracts from the place we used to work for. We all had better pay, not much, but it was better than losing pay, and much better conditions with an actual career track rather than with the whim of the managers. The old company tried to keep afloat for a year, but were losing money on every contract and couldn't afford to employ skilled or experienced people. They closed down in June of 2007, with the owners having to sell personal assets to pay debts, and the 2 remaining directors declaring personal bankruptcy as well. I left the new company in 2010 as the market had changed and more companies were hiring staff than outsourcing, so contracts were harder to find, and I also had some minor medical issues that meant I needed to be near home. New company is still going strong though, having lent more towards web design and development than anything else in these days. And with that, my friends, we've reached the end of today's ProRevenge. Have you ever dealt with a situation with a shitty employer before? Let me know about it in the comment section below. As always, my name's Ryan, the official host here at Reddit Voice, and I look forward to seeing you guys in the next video.